I'm gonna see if we've gone live, which it looks like maybe it went. In which case, the other candidates are going to wish they'd showed up a couple minutes early while we get our attendees showing up over here.
Yeah.
I'll be curious. It's going to be yeah, there it goes. It's going to be fairly easy for the couple thousand people watching this to have a good opinion about for whom to vote.
Yeah.
Based on all right. Well, let's just, we got it started here. We'll just let it hang out for a second while we get the live stream started, and we're a little 4 minutes early. So friends, if you're logging in, of course, I'm Leigh Brown, and I've got Frederick Mary with me already, and we're waiting for the other candidates to show up. And we will be kicking off the hot seat here in just a minute with a lot of questions that have been submitted by parents and educators and lots of anonymous people in Cabarrus County. So the fun part is nobody got any questions in advance, which is going to make this even more entertaining and useful, because that's what life is like in elected office in 2020, I would imagine. Just making it up as you go along, which is how our school board seems to be operating right now. So we will be back here in 3 minutes. And so go get something to drink, friends, finish your supper. And hopefully we'll have the rest of our candidates logging in here in just a couple of minutes. I believe they're probably finishing up with the Black Political Caucus, which was going from 6 to 7, in which case we know that's where they are. They'll be jumping out and back in. So let me just check our networks here and make sure we're live on Facebook and live on YouTube. And I do see us here. And all right, we got Facebook working. Lisa or Michelle, can you check the YouTube feed for me and make sure that's working? Thank you. All right, we're good on both networks. And of course, we're going to get some spam political call right now. All right, we'll be good to go here. And we'll be live, and we're already live, but we'll be back in just a couple of minutes as the rest of our candidates join us. Of course, the Black Political Caucus did their candidate endorsements last week, and they're doing a forum tonight from 6 to 7. And then ours is from 7 to 8. Go over here, make sure I'm on mute so I can watch for questions. And let's just see. Oh, here comes some more questions in the back end. I appreciate every parent and neighbor who has submitted a question of our school board candidates. I think that this is a really good awakening for a lot of people, that it's important who you elect to the local school board, which has in the past not been the most exciting and thrilling office in the past, but now we know how impactful this is in everybody's lives. All right, 6:59. I imagine within the next couple of minutes, we'll have some candidates over from the Black Political Caucus. And if we don't yet, then I'll let Mr. Mary's going to get to go first because he's here first. Hey, hey. All right. And here comes Keisha Sandridge. Hello, Keisha. Denise Adcock. I was just telling our audience, I figured y'all were jumping straight over from the Black Political Caucus. So had they finished their event, or did y'all hop out early?
Yes, they did. They respected the time.
I figured they were, because I love that there's a lot of coordination to make sure as many people in the county in whatever regard can meet other people. So here we go. Here we go. Oh,
hey.
Hello, Kat.
Hey.
And Naquela, nice to meet you. Hello, Rob. Hey, Tim. Hey, Denise.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
All right. So we are already live. Welcome to the feed. We're live on Facebook and we are live on YouTube. So friends, as you're listening to our candidates here, please submit your questions. I'm going to have them coming in by text on the other end here. There's David Harrison joining us. And it looks like we have Cindy Furtenbaugh as well. Hello and welcome. All right. So we are, I think if we catch a couple more, we'll be lucky. I'm not really sure. This is all that have RSVP'd from our 12 candidates for Cabarrus County School Board. Welcome to the hot seat, friends. Nobody got questions in advance. Everybody's going to get to answer questions fresh and live. We are expecting a couple thousand people to hit the live tonight based on the responses that we had. So you have a chance to present yourself to the residents of Cabarrus County. And I'll just lay down some ground rules for the hot seat here. First of all, and this applies to the commenters too, not just our candidates, we are not going to say any ugly things because all of these folks have put their name in the hat. If you have ugly things to say, you should have put your name in the hat. We're not going to type in all caps and use 87 exclamation points in a row because that's not helpful to anybody. Please use correct grammar, spelling, and syntax when you're talking to members of the school board because that's how I judge people. And we're going to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. And friends who are candidates, just so you know, if I tell you you have to give me a one-word answer, you have to give me a one-word answer because I have the mute button. And so if you start rambling on with some expostulation of 87 paragraphs of ideas, I'm going to cut you off because we're going to roll. We're going to get everybody to get a chance to talk. Voters in the county, tag a friend, tag a neighbor. This will be recorded. We're saving it for later. First of all, before we get started, do a quick round robin. Here's what you're going to give. Give us your name. Tell us what city you live in. And then tell us if you have kids in the school system in Cabarrus County currently. And then before I kick off that round robin, hey, thank you for putting your name in the hat because I've run for office twice and lost twice. It's the hardest thing anybody can do. So I appreciate y'all being willing. Mr. Mary, you go first.
My name's Frederick Mary. I live in Concord and I don't have any kids in the system at this time.
All right, Keisha.
My name is Keisha Sanders. I live in Concord and I have one child in the 8th grade at Concord Middle.
Kat.
I have lived in Cabarrus County all of my life. I am a graduate of Cabarrus County and I have 2 children that are graduates of Cabarrus County schools.
Rob.
Hi, Rob Walter. I live in Concord and I have a child. Well, I have one that just graduated part of the class of 2020 at Concord High School. And I also have a 10th grader at Concord High School.
Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise Adcock, and I've been a resident of Concord for 23 years, and I have 2 children that graduated from the Cabarrus County school system.
Niquela.
Hi, my name's Niquela. I live in Harrisburg for the last 16 years. I have 1 child currently in the Cabarrus County school system.
Tim.
Tim Ferd, Midland, North Carolina. Born and raised in Cabarrus County. I graduated from Cabarrus County schools. I had 2 kids that graduate from Cabarrus County schools, and I have a grandchild in Cabarrus County schools.
David.
At my age, I do not have children any longer in the system. 3 did graduate from here. I live in Harrisburg, and the name is David Harrison. I would appreciate your vote and consideration.
All right, Cindy.
I'm Cindy Furtenblatt. I live in Concord. My daughters both went K-12 through Cabarrus County schools, and one of them is now a teacher.
All right. Thank you, troops. Here we go. Question number 1. Every question I have, by the way, tonight was submitted by parents in Cabarrus County or by residents of Cabarrus County. Anybody who submitted questions from outside Cabarrus County, I appreciate your interest in the process, but your questions have been shoved off to the side. As a realtor, I did verify in the tax records that these people live here. So these are voters asking these questions. No rolled eyes, please. Okay, question number 1. Today on his press conference, Governor Cooper said that elementary kids can go to Plan A. How do you feel about that?
Who goes first?
Whoever talks first. And if somebody else is talking, just stick your hand up and I'll call on you next. Tim, you go.
Absolutely. They need to go to school. Should have already been done.
Should we have exemptions to mask is the second part of that question because masks are required in Governor Cooper's Plan A.
That should be a choice by the parents.
Thank you. Denise, you were hand up was next.
I was going to say the same thing. That should be the choice of the parent.
So your Plan A, yes. Exemptions on mask, yes. All right, who's
Yes.
next? You got a hand up? Mr. Mary.
Yes, I believe the kids should be back in school, and I agree with Tim that the mask should be up to the parents because I don't see how the kids will keep them on.
Okay, who else? Anybody else got and Cindy, and then Kat, and then Keisha.
Right before this meeting, I was in a briefing about the expanded Plan B. I think we should phase into Plan B first while Cabarrus County is still a hotspot and roll down, and the mask will be based on, I guess, what plan we're in and what the Health Alliance shares with us.
So your answer is no to Plan A?
no to Plan A at the current time. And again, we closely take the guidance of the Health Alliance for our local area.
All right, Kat, you were next, and then Keisha.
I was very excited to hear about the option A being an option. As being a former educator, there's nothing that takes the place of face-to-face teacher with teaching, with student interaction. As far as masks, I think it probably depends on the activity that's going on in the classroom. There may be some activities that the mask should be on and some that you wouldn't need. And also there needs to be mask breaks. You can't expect them to sit there all day long wearing a mask.
All right, Keisha.
So I think that Plan A is good. I'm not really there all the way yet, but I do think that they are choosing the least risky population first. So I appreciate that part of it. And I think masks should be contingent upon minimum restrictions may have. And I do think that that's also.
Keisha, can you say that second part one more time? Your signal is giving us a little bit of wonk there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think masks should be, whether or not to wear masks should be contingent upon mental health or physical health restrictions. And I also think that that's a discussion that we have with the parents. But I do think masks keep everybody safe. But again, the only way I would suggest not wearing a mask is if there's some mental health or health condition that prevents the child from being able to keep the mask on.
Okay, David, Rob, Niquela.
I would say that there's probably a whole lot of fine print to whatever the governor's order is. And on the face of it, it sounds good for the elementary ages to go back in a Plan A environment. I want to know what all the details are and how our local educators can adapt to that. Plan B, last we saw it, is not strong. It's not going to give the best education to children, and teachers have adapted to Plan C. We've got to see what the current circumstances are Monday and the recommendations from Dr. Louder and his staff as to what can be accomplished and done.
My turn.
Rob.
Yeah, I was actually excited to see that we actually have that option. I think it's a good thing to move forward to get kids in school. I don't like Cabarrus County being the last school system in this area to bring kids back. So I'd like to see our kids back.
And how do you feel about mask exemptions or mask requirements?
Well, we want to make it safe. So if masks are required to keep it safe, we got to have masks. I agree with mask breaks and some other options if there's a certain conditions that would prohibit somebody wearing a mask, that they shouldn't have to wear a mask.
And Niquela, I believe you're the last one on this question.
I am not a fan of Plan A or B, in all honesty. I believe that there should be something in between. I do not believe, just like David, that Plan B is actually going to be a good plan. So I think working with Plan A and coming up with some guidelines that will make the kids more safe is more agreeable and amenable for us. As far as masks go, I am all for the masks. I believe that they are probably going to be necessary to minimize the risk of exposure, but like everybody else, breaks are going to be necessary, and also there's going to be exceptions to those.
All right, the next question. Participation rate is currently in question by many parents. Kids are signing in, doing whatever they want the rest of the day, which is not truly participation or an educational environment. How do you feel about the currently skewed numbers and the lack of accountability from our superintendent?
So I think we as parents have to take some ownership on our kids going to school, as we do when we send them to school. If we go up and go to the classroom, then we have to take ownership over that.
Denise?
Was that all of the question?
That was all of that question, but I want to know how you feel about the accountability from the superintendent.
As it relates to the numbers that are being reported? I think I'm gonna pass on that one.
That's okay. There's more questions coming about personnel issues. If you have something to say later, that's fine.
Well,
yeah, my comments may not be nice all the time, so I'm gonna pass on that.
Call tonight.
You don't have to be nice. And Denise, and then Tim, And by the way, I should have told the audience this at first. I've been told there was a last minute superintendent called a parent feedback forum at 7 o'clock tonight, which is kind of interesting that it was unpublished to all parents and happened at the same time that we were having this live forum. So I just want to throw out there that I know about all the text threads, and that any person who's in charge of a public school system should know that the mom text threads know a whole lot of stuff. So anyway, Denise, go right ahead.
So what I was going to say is that I think that we do not at this point, or I've not seen any evidence that there is actual data that is being driven through the system that we're using virtually to be able to say whether kids are participating or not, and that it is just hearsay and it is based off of opinion, which I think is not good in making decisions as a Board of Education. There needs to be data, there needs to be percentages, there needs to be accountability.
Tim?
Yes, I think there's a breakdown somewhere of communication, because, you know, I know he said there was a certain percentage of people actually doing the work, but then I talked to some teachers who said otherwise. I mean, I had a high school teacher said out of 75 students, about 28 were participating. So when they give the data of like 95%, I mean, I would like to know where they got their 95% from. Was it just certain schools, or did they get information from all schools? That's all.
Does anybody else want to pipe up on this one?
Well, Leigh, I think if I understood Keisha's response a moment ago, if I heard it correctly, Keisha, a parent has got to pitch in about a child's involvement in the classroom. And that's where the accountability starts. Yeah, the data can show that a certain number of IP addresses are activated and therefore in the system, but whether the kids are actually paying attention is, I don't think there's a technological way to actually account for it.
Oh, aren't we not? We are now assessing kids. So if they're not paying attention, they probably are not going to do well in those assessments.
I think too,
Mary, and then Keisha.
I know I've listened to some teachers, and I've listened to even a principal that has putting stuff out on Instagram. And I've heard him say to the kids, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, because we are monitoring you and you're not doing what you should be doing. Yes, as parents, we have to be responsible for the kids, but the kids also have to take some responsibility in this also. It's got to be them for driving through. But I'm like Tim, I don't think we know true numbers yet.
Well, I just know from working with little children, it's hard. It's hard. And, there's some controversy. Some teachers are asking for the cameras to be on. Some are not requiring the camera. So if you don't have the camera, if the child doesn't have the camera on, you really don't see. And again, parents are at home trying to work. Parents have children in different grade levels. It's hard, to have someone sitting there supervising. So for these little ones, I do feel bad for them because it's hard. It's hard. So I don't know, you could be logged on and not participating.
Keisha?
I'd like to share what our teacher of the year told us in our last meeting, that she had a very high attendance rate, but she also contacts parents, and she teaches at an elementary school, contacts parents and keeps after the kids. So we do have a software product that is on all of the district Chromebooks, which monitors what the child is doing. So teachers have reported finding the kids watching YouTube videos, playing online games, because the internet is not fully restricted down to what they can get to. So there I, if you will, take it that the parents have a responsibility, just like they need to make sure there's money in the kids' lunch account, or they get on the bus on time, or get to school on time. And teachers also have a responsibility. So Mr. Furr, I'm disappointed that a teacher would kind of maybe brag that their kids were not online, and hopefully do something to get the kids online and participating. So.
I was going to say, we're going to see very soon what the grades look like. And I said this earlier, this is not a, where we're pointing the finger, it's the parents' fault, it's the teacher's fault, it's the school system's fault. This is a collective issue that we've got to tackle together. And I think if we look at this in a positive lens, like I said, we'll get grades, we'll learn from that, and we'll continue to learn, as Ms. Adcock said earlier, with data coming in, we'll continue to learn where the needs are. And we just got to see that and fix it together.
Tim?
Yes, I was going to respond to Ms. Furtenball. The teacher was not bragging. The teacher was actually disappointed. I think the point that she was trying to make was the fact that the numbers that were given at the school board meeting are not reality.
All right. Next question, and everybody will be answering this one. What experience do you personally have being involved in our schools? Do you feel it is important for board members to be active in the schools on all levels, elementary, middle, and high, in order to have the firsthand knowledge? Would you be open to a requirement of school board members that they spend at least an hour a month in different schools to gain firsthand knowledge? Who would like to go first? All right, preach.
Okay, I've had within the school system, I was a band parent, a grand band parent. I was a football coach. I was a volunteer, and I was a permanent sub at Concord High for years. I've been involved with the school system for 26 years total. I believe, being in the classroom, seeing what the teachers go through, seeing what the students go through. And yes, I think every school board member, it would benefit to spend some time in the school. I think it would help them to understand what teachers go through.
All right, Denise?
Not ever worked for the actual Cabarrus County school system, and I've never served on a school board, but I have been an employee of Rowan Cabarrus Community College and have taught classes there. I also, when I had opportunities, was a mentor at Northwest High School, where I worked with at-risk students to help them set goals so that they could graduate. Also, in my current business, I am an educator. I teach leadership development, and I also, in the past, have been a teacher through VIP Kid, where I taught English internationally to children in grades preschool all the way up through high school. So I do have virtual platform and virtual learning experience, as well as being a leader in our medical center here in Concord for over 20 years, and have managed large medical practices where I have a lot of the skill sets that are needed for the board. I do agree with having board members go to schools, even if you don't have experience. I think it's really important for us as board members to go to schools, to actually be present in schools, and to be available and to see things with our own eyes and experience the differences, because I don't think that the same problems exist in every single school. I think that the problems are different depending on where you go, and it is our responsibility to make sure we're in touch with the student and the teachers and all of the other staff that are in those schools.
Niquela?
Hi, I have been a volunteer, a parent volunteer, for the last 16 years since I've been in the Cabarrus County schools. I have volunteered with the PTO. I've also been a member of the school improvement team. Also, as the other members know, I am a disability rights advocate, so I have been an advocate for parents of children with special needs throughout the school. And I do believe that the board members should definitely be at schools on a regular basis.
Thank you. Cindy?
Yeah, I'd like to share, I've been in the county in Concord for 34 years, but over 32 years ago, I started working with Junior Achievement when the high school program was actually teaching a class once a week on financial responsibility and the economic cycle and whatnot. So I did that for a number of years, actually participated as the treasurer and chair of Junior Achievement of Cabarrus County, went on to work with communities and schools in different programs, and then certainly as a school board member of 18 years, have participated in many of the activities. I think it's actually absolutely vital that we are in schools. And that can also include being at artistic type events, being at football games, just being around and hearing what people have to say and being available.
Tim?
Yes, I've been involved as a high school football coach, baseball coach off and on for 20 years. Been on the school board 2 different times. And I think that it's up to the individual school board member to get involved. Just like Ms. Fartenball just spoke about, you got to go to activities. I mean, football games, all your athletic events, band concerts, the robotics, all of that stuff, you need to be a part of it. Now, you don't need to go to a school, just show up one day and walk in and say, hey, I'm a school board member, I'm here, like some people on this board have done. But anyway, that's a different topic. You should be announced before you come. But I think it's up. You got to be a good school board member. You got to be able to have communication with people in the community and parents. I love to talk to parents. I mean, they're going to tell you know, and teachers. Before I make any decision, I talk to teachers and parents because they will tell you what's going on. Thank you.
Rob?
I'm a parent. I've also been an instructor for civic ed, 3rd graders. I've gone in to read the kids, been part of the PTO, been part of the band boosters, and then obviously 7 years on the school board. I do believe it's important for school board members to be involved in the schools. I do go to sporting events. I do go to theater. I do go to band events. I do go to other events that the board members are invited to. One of my favorites is the IB students when they do their exhibits, their projects, where they talk about the projects that they've worked on for the full year and the impact that they've made in the community. I think that's something everybody really should see. I think that answers the question.
Let's see, Keisha?
So I have been a parent of Cabarrus County Schools for several years, and I just want to point out that there is only one board member that I felt like actually listened to me as a parent. So I think when we hear folks talking about the need to be in community and the need to be in the schools, I think we can say that and it sounds good and fuzzy, but unless it's happening, you know, what we're saying, it doesn't mean anything. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist. And I just feel like there are so many things that we miss because we are not available. We are not involved. We aren't available for parents to pick up the phone and say, hey, Keisha, which I've gotten several phone calls, parents, teachers, students, we need to make ourselves available for real.
Catherine?
Well, I've spent the last 35 years in the schools. I've been with Cabarrus County Schools for 33 years. I was one of the first 6 elementary counselors hired here in the county. My first job was a student bus driver here in the county, so I know what it's like to be a bus driver too. And I feel like every board member at some point should ride a bus. But it does mean a lot to the staff when a board member comes in. It says to us that we're important. We always appreciate it when the superintendent comes in too and motivates us, and we know we're supported. I agree with Tim, it needs to be announced. I know we at Odell invited staff members in, a lot of board members in a lot of times to read to the students, and a lot did come. So yes, I feel like we do need to be in the schools and let teachers know we're coming and there for support.
All right, David, and then that'll have made our round. I'll get you in still a second, Tim. Let David finish this question. I'll come back over there.
Thank you, Leigh. Part of your question was an hour required to be in the schools a month or something. That would just be for show. The teachers communicate with us very frequently. Parents communicate with us very frequently. They have lots of channels to do so. We meet them in the community. We know them through all sorts of events and activities. I make contributions to the STEM and to the PTAs, PTOs. I'm involved with them. I see them at church. I know them in the communities, walking up and down the street. The communications that we have with the parents are always, I think lots of them know how to get in touch with us. And I think we have effective communication with the parents when they want to provide that information. Kat and Tim are both correct, and everybody else that's on the board really does know that it's important that we just not waltz into the schools. No principal wants that to happen ever. If there's a good reason as a public event or an invitation, or if we announce that we would like to be there with the superintendent's acknowledgement and recognition, then we're invited to go in, but we just don't go into the schools because it's very disruptive.
All right, Tim, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, since we're on the hot seat and Keisha brought up a school board member that listened to her or whatever she said, tell her to name them so we can vote for them.
Keisha, you're allowed if you want to, because you were in a very contentious situation as a parent advocating for a child.
Right, right. So Tim was the only board member in my time in the several meetings that I went to that I felt like listened to me. There were a few other board members that maybe emailed me back, but Tim, I felt like I could pick up the phone and talk to him. And I think that we need that in all of our board members. We have got to be available because education is so important in how our community flourishes in the future. So we have to be available and we have to attend functions that are going on. We have to let parents know that we are there for them no matter what their child needs. They're going to get it from our education system. And we can't do that without being available.
And it does remind y'all, you get to vote for 4 so they can be nice to each other. That's why we're glad of that. All right, so this is a
Leigh,
yes.
If I may, I'd like to clarify, because I think Keisha has forgotten. When she requested a special situation for redistricting, I spearheaded that effort for your daughter, Brittany. So you remember that.
So I think I was talking about making yourself available. When I think of who is available, who can I pick up the phone and they're going to listen from fussing, regardless if I'm being looked at as the angry Black woman, they're going to listen to me.
Keisha, you may have to take one step closer to the internet.
About it, and that was Tim.
Keisha, you might have to walk around in seconds and find your signal. You broke up on us. Take 2 steps and find your signal. Okay, so here's the next question. This is a raise your hand if you are a yes. Do not raise your hand if you are a no. How many of you have kids in your home doing remote learning? Hold them up so everybody can see them.
Grandchildren.
Say what?
About a grandchild. Oh.
Grandchild.
Well, if you got a grandchild in your house under your supervision doing remote learning, children or grandchildren under your supervision. Okay. Now, if you're, let's see, if the numbers stay at 5%, which we know is the state rule by Dr. Cohen, if the numbers don't move below 5%, do you believe our children should never go back to school? Yes or no? Should our children stay out if the numbers don't move? Yes or no?
No.
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 We got to go back to school.
No.
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 They gotta go back.
Is anybody a yes?
Say the question again.
Hey, the question.
The number set by Dr. Cohen at the state is that she wants a number below 5%. In the data that the governor refuses to release. But anyway, they want a number below 5%. If the numbers don't budge and we stay at 5%, are you in favor of the kids going back to school or staying out, in or out?
Yeah.
In.
And
And Chris Cooper's order today allows elementary schools to go in.
Okay, so that brings up a good question. What about our middle and high school kids? Let's ask why can't they go back to school? Some of y'all work day jobs, and the question is, if y'all are allowed to go work your day jobs outside of the home and you've obviously stayed safe, why is it that y'all think your children can't safely go back to school?
I
think they can. Go ahead, Preet.
Oh, thanks, Tim. I think they can. If we're saying the little kids can be safe going back, I believe that high school and middle school should be able to go back, because if they're setting the guidelines of cleanliness and doing that, I don't see a reason why we can't bring them back within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, Tim?
I think they should be able to go back as well. I was putting political signs out the other day, and I rode by First Assembly, and I see kids all over the place playing. I'm like, man, this is wrong. I mean, they love their kids just like we love ours, but they see fit for them to go to school, and I just don't get that.
Okay, Denise?
Yes, I think they need to go back as well. I think that this weekend when we saw all of our state run universities open the gates and let all of our football players go out, and they're on the fields, on the sidelines, and then they decide that they want now the crowds to come in. And I feel like that, those are students too. And I feel like it's time for us to open the doors and let our kids back in school.
Catherine, then David.
All right. I like the idea that parents have options. If they want to stay option C, they can stay option C. We have students that have some health risk factors. If so, then they have the option of staying. We have teachers with health risk options too, and they have the option if they wanted to stay virtual. If we've got kids that are virtual, then we're going to need teachers to teach virtual. But I like the idea of having options. Those parents that feel comfortable and feel safe with their child returning, then yes, I think we need to look at some type of a plan for those children.
David?
Follow up, please. With all due respect to all the candidates who have not served or aren't serving right now, you mean well. I appreciate the fact that you're saying what's on your heart. I'm sure you're sincere. When we're elected and when we are serving on the board, we're subject to the law. And the good intentions you may have kind of are up against whatever the governor's orders actually are.
But
I think she's wanting to know your intentions.
That's
Right,
not a law.
Governor Cooper's giving out mandates, not law.
That's right. It's not a law, David. Sorry, it's not.
They're hiding behind that, David. And I'm trying to moderate and not get my opinions into it, but there's a difference in a mandate and a law. And speaking of that, I got to ask y'all a question here. This is from a person right now. Raise your hand if you support school choice and opportunity scholarships.
School choice in our schools. You're talking about charter schools. You're talking about what do you mean by school choice?
School choice would be defined as the child's tax dollars can follow them anywhere, so the parent can take them to a different public school, charter school, private school. Do you support school choice?
It is a matter of state law that people have school choice.
Just raise your hand if you support it, yes or no. Do you support school choice or opportunity scholarships?
I got my hand up.
I guess so.
To say something or just to raise it? Yes.
No, this is Tim.
You can pipe up.
Okay. I support choice, but I also I think legislation has to be changed where if a kid starts out the school year, say at a private school, and that money goes with him and he decides 3 months in, their family's going to go back to public school, that money's got to be given back. I think that money shouldn't be given to a charter or public school unless the kid spent the entire school year there.
Okay, so we'll just have to send this recording over to our state senators and legislators.
Yes, ma'am.
The general consensus is, do you support the ability of parents to put their children where their children might best thrive so that our disadvantaged and lower income groups aren't trapped in the lower performing schools?
It's the law.
Okay, so it doesn't mean it's implemented correctly, David. That's why they're being asked. Okay,
Yeah.
So we have another question here. There is a report that we have at least 200, according to Superintendent Louder, and according to the current school board members, around 2,000 children in Cabarrus County who have never checked into a virtual school and are deemed missing from the system. Are they considered less important than a possible case of a virus? Many of you mentioned it's the job of the parents. What about the parents who are single parents, impoverished parents, or there are homeless children in our system that are missing? Do they not matter?
Of course they matter. There are 400 McKinney-Vento children, 480, I believe, right now. They always matter.
So what's the plan for taking care of those children in a virtual environment where they are currently lost?
I would not say they're currently lost. There are efforts being made to track and engage with those children all the time. It's an individual situation where children can live in Pineville or be couch surfing in Pineville, but our educators and our bus people go and get them in the old world and bring them back here. We're doing our best to make sure that they get the same education that any of our home-based families allow. The reality is that it's incredibly hard to track every person with socioeconomic conditions and employment conditions and whatever their family's conditions are.
And the children, we have spoken many times at our board meetings and outside the meetings about being concerned. I'm a guardian ad litem in the county, and I'm very concerned about the kids who are in difficult situations and trauma situations in their home lives or wherever they're living. And that's where our teachers, and I'll refer back to our teacher of the year again, when she referred to, she is in a Title I school. So many, many children in need. But she has made it a point to contact every child on a regular basis if they don't show up for class. So in a way, the teachers are frontline contacts to make that happen. And I feel certain the vast majority of them are doing that. I don't know, I guess right now, how else we can meet that. I have heard that guidance counselors have gone out to homes to check on the welfare of the child. I'm guessing some of the school resource officers have done that. This is not an ideal situation in any circumstance, but we are trying the best with many avenues to keep track of these children.
Another justification.
Go ahead. I think there's 3 or 4 of us talking at one time.
Raise your hand so I can call on you because the signals for a couple of y'all are going, whoa, whoa. Naquela, then Keisha, and then Catherine, and then Rob. Okay.
Okay. Does my signal sound weak as well, or is it just everybody's?
This is okay, but it gets a little bit from time to time.
Okay, I'm sorry. If
you hit the video off and save your signal if you need to. You're okay right now, so don't
move. Okay, I'll stay right here. I just want to address that as we're sitting here and we say we're doing the best, and it's difficult as a once single mother of a child with special needs, as a mom of 2 children with special needs, as an African-American woman, as a former law enforcement officer. It is difficult for me when I hear us say that we are doing the best that we can, yet there is no one that I'm seeing on, and this is no disrespect. It is what it is, that we, without a face that looks like these people who are having the difficult time getting the needs that they have met, it's difficult when we're not showing up and when we're not being called, when nobody called me to say, or nobody is called, the Black political caucus to say, come together, let's sit down and have a conversation about how to best meet the needs of the children in your community. We have to have that conversation, because I always say good intentions is one thing, but intending to do good is something altogether different. And when you're going to take care of my child, I tell anybody, it's one thing to say I'll babysit him or I'll teach him, but I've got one who doesn't talk. So for you to tell me, oh, I've done the best that I can in teaching him, but he doesn't talk. Well, at the end of the day, he doesn't talk. So if you're educating him and you haven't had a conversation with me, you don't know what it takes to educate him. You don't know how to educate him unless you align with me. And that's the issue that I have. So when you say, well, I think we've done the best we can, and again, no disrespect, you have. You've done the best that you can. So now it's time to look to us, to look at the African-American community, to look at the people of color and say, we need your help. What can we do? So one of the things that we can do is we can show up. We can show up in droves, just like we showed up last week to go and clean up the neighborhood. We can go there and take hotspot to these people. We can beg. We can ask the community, can you give? We can ask the community partners, can you give? We can put these same kids, 400 and some kids, on some of these buses that are sitting there doing absolutely nothing, drive them to some of the empty high schools and separate them all across the schools to get what they need every day, if that's what we need to do. There is always a way, but we have to partner with the right people with the right answers to figure out how to get it done.
Isha?
I think we're seeing the remnants of an already broken system. And now we're in crisis trying to find the pieces. And, I feel for this parent. And, being a single mom, I've never experienced that. So I can attest to what's going on in our home. And I think that's what we have in our community. We don't know each other's experiences. We can't attest to what's going on. And I think that's what we have on our board right now. No disrespect to our board. I think they do the best that they can, but it isn't representative of the community that it's serving. And now we have the opportunity to change that. I worked with the homeless population for so long. And that's a culture that you actually have to be trusted into. That's the same thing we talk about, the Latinx population. That's a culture you have to be trusted into. You can't sit on top of a mountain and look down and expect to be able to address the needs of that culture when you have never tried to be a part. So what I'm saying is we have an opportunity to make changes right now as a community. We see the flaws. COVID has shown us a different world, one that we may have never saw before today, but it's here and we have to fix it. We can't do that alone. We can't do that by pointing the finger. We can't do that by just sitting on our behinds. So I hear Niquela when she says, we have to do more than just try. If we as board members, go start knocking on doors, if you will, or, just put our foot on the ground and start working in our communities, we'll see a lot of things change and we'll see Cabarrus County as a whole get better.
Thank you. Let's see, Catherine, and then it was Rob.
We do live in a world of technology, and technology is not one of my strengths. I had to get both of my kids to teach me how to Zoom. And I think we're forgetting a lot of kids are being raised by grandparents. And I hope, and I do believe that teachers are tracking kids to see, what is the issue? If you're with a grandparent may not have the knowledge to help you. So I have heard, as Sandy, that some resource officers have gone out to see, because children move too. Are they still in our county? But I think we've got to remember not everyone knows technology like others, and we have to be patient and help them to get logged on. But I do hear that it's going easier for everyone. So that's good.
Rob?
Yeah, I think some of those numbers were the worst case scenario. I think we've improved since then. But the fact is that there are kids that are not able to connect. And it's just another justification to try to get our kids back in school as soon as we can.
All right, so I got a follow-up question on this topic, and Tim and Denise, y'all can answer the next one first because we're running low on time and I got some hot ones coming here for you. How many of y'all have experience in talking to the staff at Child Protective Services and the Department of Social Services? Have you personally reached out to them to find out how you as a school board member can best serve our at-risk children? The follow-up to that is, what are your personal ideas for how we can improve mental health services in Cabarrus County for all children? Tim, you get to go first, then Denise.
Wow, that's a hard question. I want an easy one.
Okay, too bad.
You're
You're a former school board member. You got years of experience.
No, I think what we have to do, and I've spoken to some people recently about that. When you're a school board member, you're a liaison to different organizations, municipalities. We're going to have school board members that are liaisons to some of these groups. We've got to expand our coverage of who we're in contact with for simply to get information, because you sit there as a board member, you don't know these things. And, you know, I get a little embarrassed sometimes when I feel like there's things that I should know, but I don't know them. So we're going to have to expand and get out there and be in touch with these people, meet with them regularly, and be a part of it. And we can't let the staff at the county office bring us information. We're going to have to go out and be a part of it.
Denise?
I would just say that as a community, someone that I'm a servant in the community and going to Northwest High School and serving as a mentor to help at-risk children was not only satisfactory for me to see that person walk across that stage to get their diploma, but thinking about that now, you know, the mentorship programs and working in tandem with nonprofit agencies that we have, like Boys and Girls Clubs and other programs that may already exist, to give our kids mentors, to give kids that need that one up, the ability to form a relationship and develop life skills, and to really think about other ways that we can support our kids, just not in academic ways. And I think that is one of the top 10 priorities that I have on my campaign.
I thought I saw Nicola. Were you grabbing your water?
You did.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you did. To speak to the question about mental health, and I will follow up with what Tim had to say, is yeah, it doesn't feel good sometimes when you don't have the answers. And that's why this is a perfect time for those persons listening to vote differently for a change, to add some things to the board that we don't have. I personally am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I am a national disability rights advocate. I also have community peer support training, where I'm a specialist in peer support. I also have a military counseling certification, and I've also got sex offender treatment certification. So you're talking about bringing mental health to the board. I've got trauma training. So all of those things will be brought to the board, not just in by way of or as a liaison, but if I'm on the board, then I'm bringing that information directly to the board by way of experience and knowledge and education. And so for me, putting school-based therapists in every single school and adding family advocates are extremely important to me, to make sure that we are finding out what's going on in the homes, that we're able to get assessments for children, that we're able to assign therapists, to allow more companies to come in to serve school-based therapists and serve more children. Because when these kids come back, we're going to need advocates and we're going to need therapists at the schools. We're going to need them in the homes.
Keisha?
So it's unfortunate that I've had to work alongside or with the Department of Social Services and law enforcement and other entities within our community for kids who are at risk. You know, you start to see some of the same faces over and over again because children are at risk. We start pointing our fingers at the children and not looking at the whole picture. I think right now we are trying to make sure all of our teachers are well-versed in some type of social and emotional training, but I think we have not gotten there yet. I think 100% of our teachers should have that training, and we need to understand that children come to school with so many things that are traumatic for them, and we are asking them to learn. They can't learn in that type of environment. So we have to make sure our teachers are equipped to deal with children. And we also need to make sure that our teachers look like the children that they're serving, because children need to see themselves represented in teachers, in administrators, in school board members. And we've got to do better at that as a county. We need to stop looking at people for what they look like, but for what they bring to the table. Like I said before, it's unfortunate that I've had to see DSS and law enforcement because I've worked with at-risk children. That's kind of been my life. So we've got to change that narrative.
Okay, so you brought up the teachers. We do have a good question here, and just raise your hand to be the first one to answer this. We've talked about the children a lot. We haven't talked about our teachers and faculty a ton. what do you think are the biggest issues facing our teachers in the county right now? And what do you suggest we do as a school system to support our existing teachers and attract the best and brightest?
Stress.
All right, David, Cindy?
Stress is the most crucial issue to teachers right now. You talked about access into the schools. We get probably 100 emails a week. And every teacher it's almost painful to read, is explaining to us as best and as calmly as they can the stress that they are under.
So how do we help?
What we need to do is provide them the stability that they can keep on doing their job so that they can be passionate and get those kids engaged and educated and see them progress. Every teacher here wants to make sure that happens. And parents and community members need to work more closely, more hand in hand, more in agreement and in support of the teachers. And some of the adversarial attitudes that have gone on in recent years, or just anecdotally, has got to end. Parents have got to understand that teachers are their allies in making their children successful.
I think it was Catherine, then Nicola, and then
Well, I was thankful that teachers were allowed to go back into their classrooms, because I did feel bad for them last March when they were given 30 minutes or an hour to get their things and get out of the school. And I understand that. But even though after teaching 35 years, I wouldn't have known what to brought home, and it would have been really hard for me to have done the job they've done at home. So I think allowing them to get back into their classroom, back into their setting, back with their coworkers, because we as teachers look at other teachers for support. I mean, we're friends. We want to be together. Also, you're also giving them the option to, if they don't want to go into the school, you've given them the option to stay at home. And that's good too, especially for teachers who are parents too. So I think listening to what they need, if they need to come into the school, want to come into the school, sure, allow them to come in there. If they need the option of staying home and teaching, then we need to listen to them and what they need.
I believe it was Cindy next. Is that right?
I believe so. Thank you, Leigh. One of the most important things I feel like I've been able to contribute during this out of school time is to listen to the teachers and explore their concerns when they email, call us, however they contact us. So there's the support of the many different varieties of teacher views, how they see the current situation. Do they want to be there in B or A? What their personal situation is, trying to understand those. And then on a completely non-COVID topic, it has been important for us to continue to raise the teacher supplement. And we've been able to do that in a very good way the last 2 budget years. It is so important that we have county commissioners who support the school system. So I would just ask folks, when they're not only looking at the school board race, but look at the county commissioner race and see how those candidates have either already supported budgets or intend to support the budget to support the teachers.
All right. Anybody else want to add to this one?
And teachers just want to be heard. They want a voice in the decisions that are being made. Some of the things that we didn't actually, as a board member, you get to sit on, vote on the calendar. That has an impact on teachers and where the teacher work days end up and where the holidays are. So I think those things help too.
All right, Denise.
I would just like to thank our teachers while I have the opportunity, because I think teachers in our school system are the greatest asset that we have. And I think one of my top 10 goals, if I'm elected to the board, is to provide appreciation and to structure appreciation, have surveys and feedback models that will direct their feedback confidentially to the board, so that if there are issues that they want to talk about, it can come to us without retaliation to the teacher. I think that teachers may feel that they have things that they need to say, but they're afraid to say them. And I think we need to create a safe place for teachers to be able to give that feedback, and that we as board members need to be sensitive to that, to whatever those issues are. And then we need to do what we can to take care of those issues.
Okay, so let me jump into a sensitive question here, which I think Keisha will jump on, Tim will jump on, I'm pretty sure everybody will. You're talking about personnel issues. The school board is responsible for the hire and the review of the superintendent of Cabarrus County Schools. How many of you have HR experience in your background? Just raise a hand if you have human resources experience. Okay, what would you say or do when there is a failure of the superintendent to respond to parents in situations involving child safety, involving teachers being afraid to speak out, involving situations where the constituents of the county cannot receive a response, or there's a failure to respond to his constituents? Are you bold enough to handle that situation? Tim,
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'd
Cindy.
like to share that in closed session, we can't discuss what we may say to the superintendent. So just simply say, yes, we bring concerns forward.
I think we have a culture now where people are scared to bring their concerns forward. It's not appreciated, nor is it dealt with. And I think I was going to say this about the teachers earlier. The teachers want their voices, not just listening to them, but actually putting things in place. There's a policy, and I didn't know this till the other day, that encourages teachers to be a part of the decision-making process within that school. I haven't seen that done. Please show me where it's been done at. I'm gonna say that again. It encourages teachers to be a part of the decisions that are being made at the school versus a top-down approach. So I think, Leigh, what your respondent is saying to us is that what we're saying is going on is not happening. And how do we change that? So as a board, that our one employee is the superintendent. While we may not be able to discuss what we're saying to that person behind closed doors, we need to show that we're holding that person accountable. We don't have to tell the public what we're doing, but we need to show them that we're holding our one employee accountable by their actions, that one employee's actions to the public, to the teachers, to the administrators. And, you know, we need to understand too that the superintendent is a reflection of the board.
And I'm glad you said that, because Cindy, we're not asking for specific personnel information, but when you have parents across the county who have a similar concern, the question is, are you willing to hold a people accountable for their actions or their inaction? We're not asking for personnel details. I don't think that would be fair or right. Tim, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Absolutely. We got to hold them accountable. You know, I was on the board for 2 terms, and I've sat under our good leadership as far as board chairs and vice chairs. But like I said, during 2 terms, but over the last couple of years since I've been off the board and I watched the meetings, it looks to me like the board has lost the fact that the superintendent works for them. And it looks to me like it's the other way around. I think the superintendent is controlling the school board. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because you got to work together, but I think it's got to be understood that the school board is in charge. And I just don't, and I think it's a leadership thing that needs to change.
So I'm gonna jump back in, please, if I can, Leigh. I don't want a superintendent who'll go get coffee for me. I want one that's got backbone. And when Chris Lauder came into this system, I'm trying to call the school morale shot up. It went up very high. It was
True.
very, very strong, and a very good indication that the transition from the previous superintendent to Chris Lauder was very positive. If we're going to get into defending Chris Lauder, put me there at 100%, because Chris Lauder has got deep roots in the community. He is a fair gentleman. He is professional. He's put me in my place a bunch of times where I thought I knew what I was talking about, and I did not. And when board members get to that point, they'll realize that Chris Lauder is an asset to this entire community. Without that strong leadership, we will not and cannot and would not have made the improvements and the strides we have academically in the last few years. Is it all perfect? No, it's never perfect. But I'm not going to entertain the idea that there's a whole lot of things to worry about with the leadership of this school system.
Oh, then your child must never have been attacked on the school bus with the superintendent not returning phone calls or backing you up when that happened.
Now, Leigh,
So I'm going to carry on to another question.
Leigh, can I make one comment? It is the expectation of us as teachers that we responded back to a parent within 48 hours. If that's the expectations of a teacher, it should be the expectations of our leaders.
So school board too, right? So all of us, I can dig that. I like that.
If you're asking that of our teachers, then we should be doing the same as we ask of our teachers.
All right,
if not more.
let me throw in the last question because it's a big old doozy. And this comes from an anonymous poster just now. You have all spoken about your involvement in social events, football games, PTAs, booster clubs, financial support. However, actually making a difference in schools needs to revolve around the academic success of our students. Please speak on how you personally support equity in schools, funding for underfunded schools, offering AP classes to more students, updating our buildings, etc.
What?
The big giant question.
That's a big one.
Up there, as you,
I'll let Cindy go first on this one because she already brought up the county commissioners and I can bet that's the direction she'll go in a little bit. So Cindy, you go first and then Denise.
Leigh, I've actually participated on the budget committee for several years. When I was in office the first time, and then when I came back 3.5 years ago. And I think it is that important to look at all of those areas that I spend a lot of hours in those committee meetings and pouring through the information and what we can do better, how to stretch a dollar. You're right, there are never enough dollars. Cost of things go up. When teacher salaries go up, that local supplement takes more money. That's okay, we deal with it. But when we look at all of the requests in the budget book, we would need hundreds of millions of new dollars a year to meet all of those requests. So we try to spread them around. We focus in capital dollars to improve buildings are different than dollars for recurring operational expense. We try to spread those dollars around, hire more folks for our mental health teams. While we're still doing maintenance over on the other side, our staff is constantly looking to renegotiate lawn contracts, everything we can. One of the things I pushed several years ago, and it is not necessarily staying at this point, is don't let our employees take their vehicles home so that we can save that money on fuel and maintenance and whatnot. So we pour over those budgets, and I would suggest if anybody's really interested in all those budget details, I'd be happy to talk with them. And they can also request to be added to the budget committee. We do have, I'm going to say maybe about 6 community representatives amongst the teachers and principals and everybody else who's on those committees. So
Denise, you were next.
Yes, I would just say that, again, like Cindy's saying with budgets, I think it's important for us to think about and have feedback from our community and what they think is important for budgets as well. I know that the budget for the school system is huge, but I would be an advocate to go out and build good relationships with our local and state elected officials to really push for funding, not only for supplements for our teachers, but for our EC and our AIG programs so that we continually improve and help students that need the funding and need the programs, along with what are our parents, what is the community seeing, and be sensitive again to all of those needs when we make those decisions.
Anybody else got something?
Yeah. Just,
Go ahead, Tim.
okay, go ahead, Rob.
I'm going to take it a little bit different direction. One of the important tools the school board has is the strategic plan. And the strategic plan sets out the goals and the measures that the superintendent needs to shoot for. What are our priorities? So that's available on our website. It's there. You can see how we're doing. But if those things are important, they need to be in our strategic plan.
And I know I'm keeping y'all late, so if anybody has to bail to deal with things in the house, you can jump out. And if you're cool with keeping going, I've still got a few more questions if y'all are cool. Tim, and then Niquela, are you raising your hand? I can't tell with that lamp beside you if it's the lamp or your hand going up. Tim, you go next.
Yeah, I was just going to add, some of the things Denise brought up and Cindy brought up. During the budget process, we do all those things. You get community feedback, you got every department in the system, but it's like, for an example, at the end of the month at your house, you need $5,000 to get everything paid for, but you only got $2,500. I mean, that's what the school system goes through year in and year out. We've got so many needs. First and foremost, we got to take care of the teachers. And that's why that I harp on the other areas, the fact that we've got to constantly communicate with our commissioners, which I think we do a good job, but we got to do it with our legislators. I think that's what has been lacking in the last 3 or 4 years. We don't spend enough time just making them understand what this school system needs. That's
Right. Niquela and then Keisha.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to say is that Tim's brought up a good point about speaking to the commissioners, but when we to the commissioners, I'm sure the commissioners would appreciate that we come to them also with solutions. So I would advocate for us, if I were on the board, or even if I'm not on the board, just in general, that we go to the commissioners and to the city officials and ask for grants, for partnerships, for new businesses. That's where the money's going to come from. We're going to have to get new money in here and generate new money. We can't continue to use the old money. That's how we keep running into problems. And also talking about equity and equality and taking money and using it to replicate programs. Like Tim said, and I said earlier on the other call, is that we can't just have an AP program over here or this IEP program over here. We need to have programs replicated in all of the schools, the majority of the schools, so that everyone has an opportunity to eat a piece of that pie.
Keisha, you want to answer her, Tim? Then Keisha.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say something that she said was real interesting. When the first year I was on the school board, we had a school board chair by the name of Wayne Williams, one of the best I've ever been around. But he told me one time, he said, "Tim, quit bringing me problems, bring me solutions." And I'll never forget that. And that's good advice for every school board member. That's
good life advice, actually. Keisha, what you got? You're asking something? You're muted. You're muted.
So just a thought. We are always going to have expenses, like to the day we die. Not using a negative word, we have to plan for those expenses. And I know I heard Rob talk about a strategic plan. Well, maybe the strategic plan needs to change because our county is growing. It's huge, folks. And there are going to be needs that we're not planning for, even in that strategic plan. What I want you to think about is this. Before we were here, our ancestors lived off the land. Our community provides us for what we need. Everything that we have is here. Last year, we had a restaurant pay for all of the lunch debt for all of the kids in the school, and the community helped with that. So we've got to start showing ourselves as a board and a school system that is not siloed. We are a part of this community, and people will start to help us. We'll start to be able to find funding where there was none before, but we've got to change and look different for that to happen.
So that's a good segue to the next question. You're talking about planning. We're talking about teachers. When schools reopen and we're able to have in-person learning, should teachers be forced to use their sick time if they happen to test positive for COVID or have to go into quarantine? Mr. Mary.
Yes, I don't think they should be penalized because of this. I mean, no one wants to get the virus. And I think that we should provide for them one way or the other, because they're not going to be able to teach, but they still need to earn their income. So I would say, yes, we still need to continue to let them have their sick time until it's gone.
Are we asking if we should make teachers use their sick time because they contracted COVID?
Right. The question is, would COVID count against their sick time if they're out of school with the virus or forced to quarantine?
So where I work at, the answer is no. I don't have to use my sick time for at least 2 weeks, and which is pretty much the time frame for quarantine. And I mean, I said this before on an earlier forum, like teachers are just like us. We need to start remembering that, like they're humans. They want the same things that we want for our lives in their lives. They have families, they have children, they have lives beyond the school system. So my answer to that would be no. They should not be forced to use their sick time if they contract COVID.
Cindy, then Denise?
I'll just share, first of all, that the teachers are employees for the most part of the state. And so the COVID money does allow for, if you contract COVID, I believe it's for 2 weeks, that you're fully covered, no sick time needed. And that's how a lot of businesses are operating using that 2-week scenario. From the standpoint of needing to put a teacher in the classroom, if that teacher cannot work for an extended period of time, there's a fine balance there because the school system does not raise our own money. We don't tax like occurs for school system financial support in many other states. So we would have to have a funding source in order to pay for teachers to be out of their job but not use their sick time. So that's a bit of a, I'll say a challenging issue. So I'll just say my other fellow board members on this call cannot really say that we should do that because we would have to know where the money comes from first.
And just to chime in, this school system is one of 115, is it correct? School systems around the state. This Cabarrus County school system, we have to work closely with our county commissioners and our state legislators, a little bit of federal money and some grant money to get every nickel that we have. That money is always very tightly tied to regulations or to agreements, or in the cases of SROs, the county or the city of Concord provide that service. So if you get on the board, y'all, the financing alone is going to make your head spin. It is incredibly complex, and it is not, and that drives all these other decisions. So respectfully to everybody's passion, and I admire every one of you for jumping into this, buddy, we're going to learn an awful lot when we actually get in these budget committees, the school improvement plans at the school level. All this is very, very complex, and there are no simple answers. And then the state, for whatever reason, changes the rules on us with very little notice. That's what happens.
Okay, so since we're talking about money, we have a question here. Where do you stand on child nutrition?
Child nutrition is federally funded, isn't it? And with some state money. I mean, it is, where do we stand on child nutrition? We send buses to neighborhoods to make sure that kids are fed all year long, all summer long, all the way through December. The federal funding sources are going to provide for child nutrition at least through December 31st of the year 2020.
Mhm.
Anybody else have comments on child nutrition? We've got that one answered. Otherwise,
I got one thing I'd like to say about the child nutrition. It's not really about child nutrition, but the fact that what I would like to see done to in the cafeteria, the leftover food, I think we need to, and they throw away tons of food every day. I think we should, a benefit for teachers, we should allow teachers to eat for free. If that's, I don't know if that's federally okay to do, but if it is, that's something that's a little something we can give to teachers that I actually think a tray of food costs them more than it does a student. So we need to take a look at a little added benefit for them if that's possible.
Mhm. Yeah, on that, what
Child
Tim was
nutrition
saying.
is important.
Yeah.
go ahead, preach.
Go ahead.
Like what Tim was saying, being a substitute, I paid for my lunches and I had to get to it. And it was about twice the amount that a student had to pay for the same food. And even if you cut that in half, I think that would be a great benefit to teachers.
Okay. Next question. How do you feel about social justice education like the 1619 project? Do you believe it should be incorporated into our curriculum or kept out?
It's bad history.
Kept out.
David and then Tim.
Okay.
It's bad history.
So you believe it should be kept out of our curriculum?
The 1619 project has got a lot of historical flaws in it, a lot of bad academic basis to whatever it's attempting to do.
Tim?
I think it needs to be kept out.
I agree.
Does anybody
agree.
have a thought or opinion on it?
I
Denise says
agree.
out. Preach says out. Catherine, Niquela, Keisha, Cindy, Rob, what are your thoughts?
Keep it out. Keep it out.
Keep it out.
Now, let's also understand that the school boards do not establish much about curriculum either. It's established by
Right.
the state. And so we're
Right.
theoretically saying here what we want to say, but anybody on a school board in North Carolina does not have their thumb on the curriculum. Parents can wish that we did, but we don't. It is decided by the Department of Education in Raleigh, and this districts implement those policies and procedures.
Well, the question,
I will
though,
say that-
and
go ahead.
that's true, but who's going to speak for the parents if the response is, but Raleigh, but Raleigh, but Raleigh? Will you speak for the
Not to mention-
families of Cabarrus County?
Right. And not to mention that when you talk about Raleigh, I mean, the voice gets to Raleigh somehow. And as far as I'm concerned, any of us can be the voice. You know, we may be going for a seat on the board, but we are also a representative of the community. And for me, the whole time, all night, we've been talking about the community that is lacking, which again would be the kids who are going to the low income and high need schools. I think it's extremely important for us to have some type of social justice education, what that looks like. Now, we might need to take a very, very, very close look at that, but and how you teach it is extremely important. But for years, I've been forced to learn history in school that I didn't have a voice about. Everything I learned about Black history, I learned at church or in my college. So leaving out of that portion of history, regardless of how you tweak it, I think it's important for schools to be able to have a conversation so that as we age out of school, we can have an open discussion about history as a whole, and we have not get out of sorts in doing so.
And Niquela just went very quickly. The current school board received an email back in the spring from a student who I guess went to UNC Wilmington. And I guess she was a freshman, but she was livid, is the only word I can use, to get to UNC Wilmington and to never have heard about the Wilmington race riots and injustices that have been common knowledge area, but it wasn't part of the curriculum that she experienced here at Cabarrus County Schools. There's a gap that's out there that's not carried out to the students.
We've got to change that narrative. I've heard several students from our county say, you know, I wasn't prepared for college, not necessarily because they didn't hear about a history lesson, but just in general, I wasn't prepared for college. So we've got to change that narrative.
And Leigh, I'd just like to say again that I think it's for us as the Board of Education to have those relationships with our local officials, our state officials, and be able to voice those concerns regardless of whether we think they're going to go anywhere or not. I mean, I think we can put pressure on our local officials and our state officials to do things that maybe have not been done before. We can't take that as a narrative. We have to push and raise our voices.
I think that goes back to originally what Tim was saying, even about financing. We've got to meet with the legislatures. We just can't sit back in Cabarrus County. We've got to make the trip up there. They're not going to come to us. We got to go to them and make them aware of these situations.
Red for Ed, that's a good example of how we change legislation.
All right, last question. And thank you all for being very patient and taking all these random questions from the members of this community. And thank you, members of the community, for all watching, tuning in, and giving your comments and questions. You guys have one sentence. Tell us why you should be on the Cabarrus County School Board. If you go over your one sentence, I'm going to mute you. So be concise. And whoever's best at being concise is Rob. You go first, Rob. Rest of them can think for a second. One sentence. Why you? Why now? Why school board? Go.
Because I'm a parent and we've had a successful track record the last 7 years.
Keisha. Unmute. You're muted.
Our board has to represent the community that it serves, and right now it doesn't.
David.
For 22 years, I was a part-time instructor at Central Piedmont Community College, and I think that gives me some experience in education and teaching that is valuable to the school board. Thank you.
Cindy.
I have been prepared, dedicated, professional, respectful to my board members and to the staff, and have been engaged at the state level for about 15 years.
Tim.
Yes, I have been noted for 2 terms as the common sense board member. And I want to make sure that we continue with that, down that path. And I'm always been an advocate for the teachers and parents, and of course the students. And I think the community knows that.
Denise.
If you want change in our school system, then I'm a change agent. I'm also innovative, and I will get the job done.
Kat.
I have spent the past 35 years as an advocate for school staff, parents, and most importantly, our children. And I want to continue that journey on the school board.
Naquela.
Because together we can do so much more than we can do alone.
Preach.
I believe the time I spent in the classroom as a substitute, football coach, band parent, working with teachers, knowing what they've been through, working with students, getting to know them and gaining their trust, I think that helps me to become a school board member.
Guys, thank you. I know you've now been on a 2-hour stint of Zoom between the Black Political Caucus and then me and my random grassroots people. I appreciate you putting your name in the hat. I appreciate all that you're doing. Friends that are watching, if you want to know who my 4 picks are, you'll have to private message me because I think that's a private conversation. And reach out to these candidates, call them, email them, find out what other questions you have because this is your school board. This is your county. These kids are your future. Signing off, friends. Y'all go have a good rest of your Thursday evening. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.
Bye.